All right. And hello, welcome to Sound Mind, Sound Body. I'm Izzy Naud. I'm a health and well-being coach for the electronic music industry. And Sound Mind, Sound Body is my platform where I share about health and well-being, tips and practices, and invite guests such as Saskhia Menendez today. Hello, Saskia, how are you?
Very well, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's sunny here in Barcelona, so I
I'm
couldn't be
jealous.
more happy.
I'm so jealous. It's so cold here in London. And thank you so much for having me and for also doing the work that you do. Super important. And thank you for being great representation for our community. It's
Thank,
well,
thank you, Saskia, for joining us today. And I'm gonna introduce you. I'm gonna read your bio. Here we are. So Saskia Menendez is the founder of the Global Trans Charter, a speaker, podcast host, and innovator in music. She works at the intersection of electronic music culture, mental health, inclusion, and sustainable artist development. Through her advocacy, conversations, and industry initiatives, she champions safer, more equitable spaces while supporting creatives in building resilient, future focused careers. Saskia's work bridges culture, identity, and well being, placing the human experience at the center of music innovation. That's amazing. And today's topic is human first, redefining success, identity, and well-being in electronic music culture. Let's dive into this.
can't wait. Thanks for having me again. Thank you.
Yes. So the first question is that you've built your work around, at the intersection of electronic music, inclusion, and mental health. What personal experiences or turning points led you to this path?
Well, there's been so many turning points and so many different directions that I've had to pivot along the journey. Um, Sorry about that. But as a child, I've been born to two deaf parents. None of my parents could hear me. So they couldn't actually communicate with me. But I went to an amazing school that absolutely knew that I could sing. And it was my school that instilled this amazing musical education, the singing, the structure, and also being in an area that was, open to people that were quite different. And being to two deaf parents from different communities, I found it quite difficult to always fit in. I knew I was different, but I knew I had something that I could offer. So I think my teaching and the teachers that I work with helped me to understand my difference and use my voice as an action for change and to speak up for those people that can always speak up for themselves. So yeah, then I moved into children's home, foster care. So I was away from my parents. My mum left when I was 5. I lived with my dad, and my dad couldn't manage. So we ended up going to children's home, foster care. And then I ended up living with my grandparents. They were both World War II veterans, fought in World War II. But they had some great skills to offer, especially around, supporting, educating, and understanding where I come from, but also being there for me, somewhere I could go that was a safe place. Because where I lived at home, it wasn't always safe. It wasn't always, a place that I wanted to be. So growing up with them until I was 20, well, I was 17 when I left home, but they passed away when I was 20. So having that understanding, that background, that knowledge that I could take forward with me was really, really important. I was born in a council estate, very run down, always around people from all different backgrounds, all different walks of life. And I just wanted to treat people as people, nothing else. I just see people as a person. I don't look at labels. I don't look at tags. I don't really judge people based on those things. I just want to see people thrive, survive, and be happy. So
Mm,
they were the turning points for me. I sang for the Queen. I sang for Princess Diana. I won a scholarship to go to a private school in the UK, which was in Oxford, which is a very prestigious educational place, a hub. And yeah, I learned a lot from that. I was classically trained. And I've always done music from the age of 8 years old all the way up until my master's degree, which I completed in 2021. So I finally finished my education in 2021 in music. But I've always wanted to be a singer. I always wanted to perform. I've been in many groups. I've worked with many different people. I've always songwritten, and I've always wanted to support community because I think really it's about community. So I've learned a lot of different things along the way, but I think that's what's built me to who I am today.
Wow. And how did you end up in electronic music?
I wouldn't always say it's been electronic music. I'd say experimental music and pop music, but pop can be anything. So for me, it's not always been electronic music per se. I've always worked alongside electronic music, but I know when we've always had pop songs, we always want a dance remix or we always want something that's electronic to go alongside that. So I've always known that's part of the structure that we want to build so we can cross over into different genres, but also support those genres as well to grow, to thrive and to flourish, sorry, is really, really important.
Great. And how has your own identity shaped the way you experience and navigate the music industry?
I think my own identity has given me resilience. It's always been coming from an underdog position. It's always been coming from a place of misunderstanding, from underrepresentation, from being the underdog, from being misunderstood or misrepresented. What I wanted to do was bring something fresh to the table that was authentic, it was real, it was original, and it was telling a real, authentic story that goes way back. It hasn't started recently. I transitioned 15 years ago. I've also got two children and a grandson now. So I've got lots of things going on, and it hasn't always been a straight line. There's been lots of pivots, lots of changes, and it's not always been, okay, so you're this, so you're going to be that. And I think for me, having those understandings of different communities, what's accepting, what's not so accepting, how different communities operate and what they accept, and understanding the cultural differences has been super important for me and super powerful, actually, because when you understand different cultures and different countries and the way they sit and what they operate under, then you can try and understand how to move forwards. So that's been really beneficial.
Wow, amazing. And the electronic music culture often celebrates visibility and constant presence. What
Mm.
do you see happening behind the scenes emotionally for artists and professionals living under this pressure?
Wow, behind the scenes is a very different story to the people that are on the stage, unfortunately. So I'm a music industry professional as well as an artist. So I've happened to see both sides of it. Now, I think when you're on stage, it's more inclusive, it's more representative, and you can drive change. Behind the scenes, they want to point it to the people that are on the stage and say, well, we can't do much because without the artists, we can't drive change. And I think that we've come to a stalemate now where the industry is not moving as fast as what we have representation up on stage. It's still very secluded, it's very clicky, and it's not as accepting as I hope it to be, unfortunately. So I don't always want to work in environments where I don't feel safe or I'm not supported or you're there to tick a box because I don't think it's about tick box exercises. It's about real inclusion and real change. And that's why I want to see meaningful change. We don't just say it, we mean it.
Yes, and so then through your organization, you
Yeah.
also contribute to inclusion. Can you share a bit about this?
Yes, I started the Global Trans Charter last year in May. We've now been, signed up in 34 different countries across the world. We've had over 921 sign-ups, which has been fantastic. We've had a few bits of media coverage in the music industry, but the majority of that's been done through grassroots networking, meeting people face to face, getting them to sign up, and also understanding the challenges and barriers trans and non-binary people face in music, but also understanding that there is a difference between trans and non-binary people. Because I think sometimes we get lumped together and they say, okay, so we have a non-binary person, so we've ticked the trans box. It's not, it's not as simple as that. It's more, nuanced. And we need to understand those differences a little bit more and who gets impacted in those communities and who doesn't, and who's easier to move around and who finds it harder, especially financially.
Right. Yeah, I am connected to this because in the past I had one of my flatmate who was also a trans woman, and
Okay.
so I'm kind of familiar with the challenges in life
It's
for
hard. It can be very, very hard. Not just hard, it's also about acceptance and how other people see you. And it is about perception. And I think sometimes people think they can cut corners and say, okay, we can put someone up on stage and say they are something, but that doesn't always mean they're representing the communities they come from or they understand those struggles, those barriers, all those issues. And I think what we really need is role models that can stand up on a stage that have had that real lived experience, that have gone through it, that have lived through it, like you said, like your friend. They've experienced those hardships, those discriminations, those times when they couldn't get any money or they couldn't get housing or they couldn't get employment. All of these things are super important for my community because they really exist.
Yes, and so do you have also like a charity where you can support people in your community, or how does that work?
We have a charity in the UK, but I don't really want to say any names, but I find that when you're donating to a charity, like you do any charity, where does the money go? Does it always go to the people that need the money? And I think this has gone back to way back to Africa. You know, when we was doing Africa stuff to get the water to the people in Africa, everyone was donating money, but it wasn't going to Africa. It was going to the people that were working on the wards. So, you know, I think it's not just about working for charities, it's about ensuring that the money is going to the right places. And for me, especially in music, it's been about funding. The opportunities have been there, but without the funding, there's no progression. And without money, there's nothing you can do. You can volunteer all day long, but does that always going to make sure that you can sustain yourself or you can survive or you can progress? Because it becomes a time where you're stuck without that funding.
Right. And so, what solutions do you see for coming up? What can be done?
I think it's quite a difficult one because we're so open. The trans community's changed quite a lot over the years. And obviously, European Union is different to the UK. UK is different to the US. And I think what's happened with the UK is we're stuck in the middle. The European Union has one voice, the United States has another, but the UK can't decide where we sit. So until we decide what the laws are and what the regulations are, anyone can say what they are and anyone can access that funding without even being a true representative for that community. And for me, what I found is a lot of people that are not true representatives of the community are able to access that funding. And people like myself are unable to access that money, that pot of money, that pot of support in order to progress. So we're still stuck in the same position. Unfortunately, it looks great and it's ticking all the boxes, but whoever's getting the money, it's not always going to the right people. I'm afraid. Unfortunately, yeah.
Hopefully, we find a solution so that
It's crossed.
there's a balance where it has to be.
Yeah, it has to be fair and equitable, but also we need checks. You know, everyone needs checks. If I go to Europe, they want to see my passport, they want some checks, they want some balances. And I think the problem the trans community faces at the moment is anyone can say they're a trans person, anybody can. Doesn't mean that they've generally gone through the process, they've got any diagnosis or any medical condition. It doesn't always mean that. It just means self identification. And I think the problem we have is if you're self identifying, which is absolutely fine, there's no problem in that. But if you're self identifying, then sometimes the people that have actually got a medical condition that have gone through the process are unable to access those funds because of the people who are saying, get it. So that's the problem.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Wow, okay. So yeah, maybe there could be like a transformation in terms of regulation and laws and how the money, if the funds get redistributed, no?
I just think it's more about, you know, refining what we already have, not changing anything, but just making sure it's safe, but it's also supportive and it protects. Because I think at the moment we're lacking protection. And that's why I wanted to build up the Global Trans Charter as well. We have a lot of trans and non-binary people in the music industry. They need to be protected. They need to feel safe. We need opportunities and we need funding, but not everyone can access that. And also understanding we're not always starting on the same starting points. We start from different starting points always. So understanding that too, it takes us a little while to catch up.
Okay, thank you.
That's
Uh,
okay.
Another question. What are the less spoken about psychological or emotional costs of sustaining a career in the music industry?
Definitely burnout, which is what you've mentioned already, and self-care. I think, I'm a giver always. I give, 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 give. I'm a very empathetic, understanding person. I love people. I just love meeting people. And I find it very difficult to say no. It's not something that I like. I don't even like saying the word because when I was a child, it was always no. Every time I'm accessing something in music, it's always no. I've had 2,000 no's to one yes, always. So it's something that I don't really like to do is say no, but also understanding what what aligns with me, what are my values, what are my missions, what are my goals, and how can I achieve those with the right people and trusting those people because as you know, in music, there's a lot of people that say they're going to do things, doesn't mean they're going to do it. There's a lot of people who are going to invite you along to look good or to take a picture and say we're inclusive, but that doesn't always mean they really are. And I think, some of this experience has shown me that you can do a lot of things from the goodness of your heart. You can do them for free, but you're not always going to be appreciated and respected. So, really, what I want to see is appreciation, respect, and understanding, as well as protections.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so you mentioned burnout. It's
Oh, yeah.
almost normalized in our culture. Like when I talk about
Yeah.
burnout around me, they're like, "Oh yes, I'm on the verge of a burnout." But then I'm pushing through it. So, what do you think that there's so much burnout, and what are we collectively not addressing?
It's the people. The music industry is the corporation. It doesn't care about people, it cares about money. And I think this is the thing. And I think the soul is draining out of the music industry in every aspect of music. We're losing the soul, the essence, the importance of authenticity and real lived experience. Because what I'm starting to see is we're not seeing the lower class or the middle class. We're seeing the working class and the middle class people being cut out. And it's more the upper class and people that can afford to access music that are actually getting those opportunities because they have the money, they have the backing, they have the support. Whereas working class people, we generally don't have any support. And if we want to get support, we're up against 7,000 people that are applying for the same support we're applying for. So it's very much dog eat dog. And I think when you're setting out to build a path for other people to follow, you're trailblazing, you're building a path, you're going to come up against resistance, come up against people that don't appreciate what you're doing or don't like what you're doing. And change is difficult. I understand that. I appreciate that people always need their own time, their own space. But what people need to also understand is we're human beings. We need to be given a chance. We just want to participate in society and do what we're best at doing. And I think that's where we're going wrong. We're forgetting about people. We're focusing more on money. And I think that's the real issue in the music industry, to be fair. They don't care about people, which is why I think what you're doing is fabulous because you're caring about the people involved in the arts. Because without people, there is no art.
Yes, and also like we've seen recently that many funds
Mhm.
uh,
I've been cut.
they big funds, the investment funds, they will take over
Yeah.
music corporations, and so that has particularly an impact.
Yes, but also political agendas. And I didn't realize how much policy and politics has to do with music. I'm not a politician. I'm an artist and a creative. But I've realized, especially in the UK, how much the arts has been taken over by politics. It's all become very politicized and political. I don't believe in that. I believe in people. It shouldn't be about politics, regardless of what you think. I want you to get up and have a good time and put a smile on your face and to enjoy yourself. I don't want to divide people. I'm trying to bring them together. And I think that's the difference is these days everyone's trying to divide each other based on where you come from, what you look like, what's your religion, or what's your culture. We're people. We just want to enjoy ourselves and have a good time. But also we want to express ourselves and tell a story. That's so important. We're losing that all the time.
Yes, and do you think this is related to like who is in power is
Yeah.
orienting what's happening in the industry?
Difficult one. It's a difficult one in the UK because I think no matter who you vote for, you know, any politician will tell you, okay, we stand for this, we stand for this, we stand for that. As soon as they get into power, they change their mind, or they U-turn, or they don't do this, or they don't do that. So for me, politics is divisive. I respect it. I understand it impacts all of our lives. But I just don't want to see music being consumed by politics, because sports and music, they're recreational, they're enjoyment, it's medicine, it's an outlet, it's therapy. You know, these things should not be political or overtaken by politics. They should be neutral. They should be spaces where people let their hair down and have a good time.
Hmm. Okay. To go back to the burnout, from your perspective, what are the early signs that someone is moving out of alignment before
Oh, that's
burnout?
a good one. Wow, I wouldn't even say it's always burnout. Like I burn out, I've burnt out several times. Well, I wouldn't say burnt out because burnout for me is a bit tricky. I feel like my energy levels drop, but then I just withdraw myself from some of those situations. But I also want to make sure that, you know, what I'm doing is authentic and those values and goals align. So if they don't always align, then does it make sense? Because, you know, if you're volunteering yourself, you're putting yourself in a position where you don't always feel safe, or you're not even respected. You're just put there to take a few pictures and ensuring that they can get the funding the year after. I don't always think is beneficial for me or for anyone else. So for me, it's about what is good for my community, what is good for me, and what do I see as healthy. But I think, you know, for the burnout for me, it's setting my boundaries and making sure they're very clear. So I came from a disadvantaged home and my mum left at 5. So no one was there to teach me boundaries. I went through domestic violence. I went through sexual abuse. I went through all of this stuff with my ex-partner about 7 years ago now. And it was all to do with boundaries and setting those boundaries. What is acceptable? What is not acceptable? And I think for me, I've put myself in positions sometimes that have not been healthy, that I've walked away from in tears, but I've still kept going. And I think for me, it's not always about burnout. It's about understanding what aligns, what doesn't align, and where should I put my energy? Because there are vampire energies too. There's going to be certain people that come along, they want that energy, they want to know about it, they want to learn, which is fine. But you know, if you want to go to a school or you want to pay for a teacher, you've got to pay for it, and it can't be always for free. And we need to progress and we need to grow. And I think sometimes people are lacking that understanding, and that can also cause burnout. It's not always, I don't think it's a people thing. I think it's a structural, systemic thing where the system's not built for change. It's built for the same old things. Does that make sense? And I think that can cause a lot of frustration and kind of upset. And I think that can get me down more than, you know, running around doing everything. That's fine. I've got ADHD. I love to be busy. I think the busier I am, the less worried I am about my past. And I'm focused and I'm appreciated and respected and I'm safe. Do you know what I mean? So for me, it's kind of flipping that script to say, you know what, you can do what you want to do it in a healthy way, but don't be dragged down the wrong path because that can cause issues for me, for sure.
Great, thank you. Yes, and so you hold space for others in complex
Mhm.
environments. What does your own health and well-being practice look like on a daily or weekly level?
I do meditation, I do gratitude, I do journaling, I do prayer. I go to church on a Sunday. I believe in God. So I do religious practice. I also speak to my children. My children are my backbone. My children keep me going, but they are the fuel in my tank. I think without them, they are what keep me going because I come from a background where I wasn't provided for. I don't want my children to go through the same things that I had to go through. I want to be able to provide for them, support them, but also make sure that they're seen, they're welcome, and they're heard. Um, I'm trying my best, but in this industry, it is very difficult to break through, even regardless of what you're doing or who you are. It's about staying true to yourself and being authentic, being original, and loving yourself. And I've only just come to learn this, Izzy, because it's taken me a while. to love myself. And I think that's something, appreciate what you bring to the table. Because I think for me, it was about coming from a place where I wasn't always respected or appreciated. I didn't know my self worth, I didn't know my value. And I think sometimes I put myself into situations where I think I'm going to be valued, but then you just get devalued again. So it kind of repeats that cycle. So I don't want to be in those cycles.
Yes, I get it for sure. Yeah, so that's the whole thing about how do we maintain boundaries
Mm-hmm.
when we need to, when we're in spaces that demand always to overextend and being always available.
Well, I was speaking to someone just now, like 15 minutes ago, and we was talking about, doing the DEI and all these talks and inclusion. And they were always saying, oh, it's always the women that come along, but where are the men? And I'm like, but the women are already on board. They're already learning and we're already talking to each other and we're already connecting. But the men are nowhere to be seen, right? But then it's the men that have the power dynamics and the power change structures that they can pull the levers to make that change. And I think sometimes it's the men that are more resistant than the women, to be fair, on change, because they're quite happy to sit where they are, right up at the top, but they don't want to let other people through or they don't want to diversify, which I think is totally wrong. I think we need representation from all different walks of life, from every underrepresented community. That way we can learn from each other. That way we can come together as a powerful force, but at the moment, I don't see that change. We're forever talking about it, but we never see it.
Hmm.
That's frustrating.
Still, there are like more women who are
Mm.
have now some
Oh
senior
yeah,
and important roles.
some, but not many. And it depends on their role and what they're doing and who they're influenced by and who they're getting paid by. So we have to be careful on that one. There's certain people in certain positions, but they also have an agenda. And I see this all the time in music. There's certain people out there that have a set agenda and they're stuck to that agenda and they're not going to budge. And that's it. But they will sit there and talk about inclusion, which is fine. And they want to be more diverse and representative, but they don't always want to be accepting to new things, which I can also find a challenge. So there's always that conflict of change, of need, of acceptance. And I'm quite used to that. I've gone through that all my life. But in a professional environment, you'd expect a little better than what you would from what I've seen, to be honest. And it's quite upsetting at times. I do vent now and again. I have my little outlets where I've got to speak up because I believe if you don't speak up, then you're also contributing to that issue. And I was part of Key Change in 2023, and they always taught us to speak up and be honest and fight for change. But then there's been several times where I fought for that change and spoken up and been shot down for speaking up. So sometimes I just think, is this just a tick box exercise again? Am I now stuck in a echo chamber where only the same people are going to hear me? Because for me, it's bigger than that. I need to see real change. I want to touch people's hearts and minds, but I want to be real with it. And I mean what I say. And if I say it, I only say it because I mean it. Does that make sense?
Yes, definitely. Who would you say are your allies?
I think I've got many allies across the globe. I've got loads. I couldn't just pinpoint one particular group. I have a very diverse range of allies from many different countries, which is fabulous. But I couldn't just say it's men, women, it's LGBT, it's trans, it's not, it's everybody. Now that's how I live my life, Izzy. I don't just walk around in a bubble. Okay, I'm this person, so I walk around here. It doesn't work like that. I'm just a person living in a wide world with loads of different people. We have to get on, right? And I think the problem with the music industry, it's become very, okay, you're electronic, you're over here. Oh, you're trans, you're over there. Oh, you're black, so you go over. It's become very segregated. And it's not something that I really appreciate because, as you know, we just live our lives, we get on. We don't need to be put in these boxes and we don't need labels. All we need is freedom and expression. And I think that's what the arts is lacking in soul. You know, we are losing those things if we're not careful by just putting labels on everything, which is difficult. But then that's also part of marketing. So there's that balance to have.
Hmm. So how can we create more inclusive and safer space now in the industry?
I think it would be nice to see more than just one person in a room. I've walked in many a rooms. There's one trans person, there's one Asian person, there's one black person. Okay, we've done our thing. And there's like 95% of white people. But there's only one of each of the underrepresented groups. We need to work way harder on that. We need to ensure that these people are supported, that even when they're traveling, they're safe. You know, they aren't traveling alone always. Or if they are, they have pickup transport, they're taken to the airports, they're taken back, not just left at an airport and says, okay, you've got to get here and you've got to be there in a certain amount of time. And it's pitch black and you're a woman. I'm a trans woman, but I've had full surgery. You're actually walking around an area where people don't see you as a trans woman. They just see you as me. They just see me as me. And not everyone knows. So sometimes I'm put in positions where I'm like, oh my God, this is terrible. I'm doing it because I love it. And it's not about the situation, it's about what I want to do. But also having that compromise and saying that this is not okay. But until someone does it, how are we going to know what's okay? So I'm kind of a guinea pig, should we say? And I want to use that experience to make sure other people don't go through that again and they are supported along the way. You know, ISM was great. They picked us up from the airport, they took us all the way to the venue and took us all the way back. But there's been many conferences, right? You're going to go here, you've got to get yourself to this other place, which is 4 hours. Then you've got to get a taxi from the train station to the hotel. And you're just like, oh my goodness, I'm on my own. I'm in a different country. My phone's not working because I'm not in the European Union anymore. So they've cut off all my phone calls and my WhatsApp. And now I've got to rely on the people that I can't even speak always the language with. But I can manage because I can do sign language. And that's really helped me.
Oh, wow. Well,
Yeah.
it's great that you're educated with silent language.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Because my parents are deaf, right? So even if I'm in a different country, no one can understand me. My sign language will always help. It always does. It doesn't matter. They can understand me.
Wow. Thank you. So, last question. If we were to truly put human first in electronic music culture, how would success need to be redefined?
Wow. That's a great question. We want to put humans first. I think we need to start respecting human beings first and respecting what we all bring to the table. And when I'm saying that, I mean collectively, because when we all come together, it's super powerful. I was on Key Change, there were 73 of us at that time in 2023 from all over the European Union, Canada, and the UK. One of the best times I ever had. They were super supportive, they were super kind. Everybody there was on the same page. We've all been in touch, we all support each other, and we all collaborate now and again, but we don't forget each other. And I think for me it's about putting people before money, but also understanding that if we collaborate more, then we can actually share more. It's got more of an outreach and more impact. And I think that's what we're losing sometimes is corporate stuff is great, and yeah, we need money, but when we actually have that authentic representation and these collaborations across borders, it's so powerful. That is so, it's something that we don't often do, but we need to do more of because I think the music industry has become, I don't know, a bit segregated and a bit distant from each other. And okay, you're here, you're there. I don't like that. I want to see everyone in one room all together, having a good time, enjoying ourselves, smile on the face. And that's what it should be about: passion, inspiration, and education. And I think sometimes we forget about the educational part and the inspirational part because we're just too focused on, okay, what's the data saying? What's this saying? What's that the stats saying? We need to focus more on the people, bring them to the forefront. Let's be representative. Let's be honest. Let's be open. Let's be authentic. That way, we can be way better than what we ever have been. And we can grow. Because I think at the moment, we're all stuck with the growth thing. No one's growing. We're not doing anything different. We're just rinse and repeat the same old stuff. We need new stuff. We need new talent. We need new inspiration.
Yes, exactly. And also, the magic comes from the humans.
It does. And you can't beat it. And AI could never beat that either. And I think, you know, a lot of people, they worry about AI and how's that going to impact music? AI doesn't have the real lived experience. AI doesn't have the emotion. AI doesn't have the story unless you give it the story. We do. And if we put them all together, how beautiful is that? That's amazing, isn't it? And isn't it powerful?
Yes. And that's the thing is that music is just like divine.
It's
also.
amazing. Absolutely. It's my soul. It's part of my soul, you know, and I'm without music, I wouldn't even be here. Music saved my life on many occasions. I can tell you that for free. But also, music is tribal, you know, music resonates to certain tribes and certain people. And what I find at the moment is if we don't have that representation from my community as well, what have we got to resonate with? What have we got to connect with? What have we got to inspire to be like? Because if you can't see it, many people can't be it. They need to see it in order to be it.
Definitely. Well, thank you very much, Saskia, for
Yeah.
the beautiful
Oh,
work.
it's a pleasure. As always, you're so awesome. Thank you. You've cheered me up this evening. Just finishing on this snow, it's been super happy. And thank you.
Thank you. Is there one last thing you'd like to share? Like, where can we find you?
Oh, you can find me on LinkedIn with Saskia with Saskia Menendez on LinkedIn, Mizsaskia on Instagram, or you can find me on YouTube, Saskia Menendez. You can listen to my podcast, Music Industry Insights Worldwide, which you are a guest on, and you will be out in a couple of weeks' time. I
Yeah,
just uploaded that onto the YouTube, so you'll be out on that soon. And yeah, if you want to find me, just reach out and connect just like you did, and I'll be there.
great. Well, thank you very much, Saskia.
A
And
pleasure.
we will get into the safe space part
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
All right, let me stop the recording. Yes.